I want to hit on a couple of questions that have been submitted by the community. One of these questions, it keeps surfacing. What suggestions do you have on how to help a loved one who is newly severe? That's kind of a big shift from getting in a routine and trying to figure this out with someone who has been chronic for a long time. We're seeing now a significant number of people becoming newly severe. How do you navigate that? I'd like to start with Kyle on this one.
Yeah, I mean, it's so hard. And, kind of like what you were saying is patients, they're not always going to know what they need. They know they're in pain and they know they're suffering, but they don't know what the solution is. And you don't know what the solution is either. I mean, really, nobody knows, right? That's why we're still here. So, my best advice, kind of once again, is just to try and understand their experience. The best thing that you can do for them in the beginning is to make sure that they are seen, that they felt seen and understood, because they are so lonely and isolated and scared from the disease itself. And building that connection and being open to hearing, what they're saying is hard, but it's necessary. One piece of advice I was given for this is, like, whether you acknowledge what they're going through or not, they're still going through it, right? So your denial of, your resistance, your internal resistance, doesn't change the reality of what's going on. So the kindest thing that you can do is open yourself up to seeing what they're going through, and so that they felt seen, because they're going to go through it whether you're denying it or not. And it's emotionally very difficult, but it is the kindest thing I think you can do for someone who's nearly newly severe.
I have something I'd like to add to that too. As a caregiver, I was in the beginning feeling like there was some kind of pressure on me to find these answers, to go online, to look for the drugs or the specialist or the something to fix this. And I think one of the hardest things that I had to accept was, after a whole lifetime of problem solving, I couldn't solve this. And to accept the fact that there are specialists, there are things you can do, but when they say, this pain is horrible, all I could say was, I'm so sorry. I couldn't say, here, take this Advil, because we learned that Advil didn't do a thing for his pain. So, I would, want to say, can I do this? Can I give you a back rub? Can I, whatever. I had to accept the fact, if he wants me to do something, he will say it. I don't have to keep suggesting things. I don't have to keep trying. I can relax and just listen. I can just say, I'm so sorry that you're going through that, and hear his pain, and, give that, just be present for it and not let it burn me that he's on fire, but just take that fire. So that was really important for me.
Thank you. I
Yeah.
both of those were really excellent answers. Amy, I want to go to you. Working in healthcare, you've learned a lot of different ways to try to both navigate, as we've touched on previously, but what happens when you need someone to come into your house? What sort of resources are there that people should be considering? I know the group here, we talked beforehand about some of the things we want to include on that resource guide, but what are some of those, I guess, either apps or state resources or stuff that people should be considering?
It is truly the barrier for people with ME to receive healthcare. I don't know what the answers are, but I think just knowing that saying it's not an option is not the answer. If you are needing, even, if somebody has been sick for quite a few, quite a few years, they are not going to be getting the dental care that they need. They are not going to be getting their eyes checked. They are not going to be getting, you know, even skin checks to make sure that they aren't, you know, having some crazy moles or different things that need to be attended to. I mean, these are all things that happen just as life progresses, that, you know, you need to have just general medical checkup. And we have set up our healthcare system to, you have to be well enough to receive medical care. And it is really scary and sad, because these are the patients that are too sick to get medical care. And even going to the ER, it literally, you know, it's to the point of like, you know, is this really bad enough, or is it almost too bad? I don't want to go. I don't want to take my loved one to the ER because they're too sick. I guess my search has always been putting those kind of those people in my place, on my phone, just who I know that have connections to the medical community. Who are the nurses that I know? You know, who are the people that have a relative who's a doctor? Who, you know, just really searching out in your contact of like, if my loved one needs an IV, you know, needs IV fluids, instead of going to the ER, is there somebody that I can call? And I know that this is a level of that, you know, people don't have this, you know, this isn't normally in communities. This is, you know, not possible for everybody, but just by putting it out there in, you know, Facebook groups in your community, is there somebody that has these skills that can help me and my family, or somebody else that's needing home health? You know, what are the companies? You know, what are the people that have set up businesses to do blood draws at home? You know, sometimes people have developed private companies because, you know, pediatric community, they don't want to take their kids, especially during COVID time. They didn't want to take their kids to go get shots. They didn't want to take them to get a blood draw when they needed to. So that there are some mobile blood draw companies that are pop-up sites that you can Google, and we'll put some keywords in our resources for how just to even Google it for your community, and to find out if there are some mobile phlebotomists out there that would come to your home to do a blood draw or do an IV, so you don't have to go to the ER. But also, I've had so many conversations with my dental hygienist and my eye doctor to say, hey, who do you know that can come to my house? And, you know, we've had hygienists who just come with an electric toothbrush, and they come to our house and clean my daughter's teeth just because she needs that care. She needs somebody to be able to look inside her mouth and see if there's something going on. An eye doctor, I called up our local hospital, and I just called up their optometry department and said, who is there? Is there a resident that wants to learn how to do a home visit? You know, is there somebody that wants to learn how to think about things outside of the actual, you know, medical facility that can, you know, go over to our house, you know, and just do a visit? I'll pay out of pocket. I just want somebody to come to our house that knows what to look for. So I think that if you are finding that your loved one is needing certain care, don't stop by two people saying, no, it's not possible. Keep pushing. That's not the answer I'm looking for. I'm going to keep pushing, and I'm going to find somebody that can help me. So I guess, you know, that's my key thing is, you know, if I'm afraid to be told no, then that's on me. But I cannot turn to my loved one and say, you know, I'm afraid to ask, because they need help. I need to put my own fears aside and go beyond that.
So I love that, Amy. And, you know, something came to mind, the importance of still protecting our loved ones when folks come into our home. You know, COVID is still a very real thing. So are all the other viruses and infections that preceded it. How do you advocate for the safety and protection of your loved one when people are coming into their home and interacting with them? Let's go to Galen for this one.
I I ask them to wear a mask when they come in my home. And I have them in the little plastic all ready to go if they need them. But usually if it's some kind of, healthcare person, they say, oh, let me go to my car, and they go back to their car and they get one. So nobody is by standard wearing the mask. Actually, the guys who come with the transport, they are always masked. I never have to ask them. We do a gurney transport for any visit, but and I tell my caregivers, they all know, I don't care if it's a headache. If anything is wrong, stay home. It could be a headache, it could be a sniffle, it could be allergies. Something's wrong, stay home. Don't come. It's okay. We'll be fine. So those are the two things that I do. And of course, I wear a mask when I'm at Publix or, CVS or anywhere, where I'm indoors in a store or whatever. I always wear a mask. And 99.9% of the time, I'm the only one in the store.
This has been really, really insightful and so helpful. We have about 3 minutes left, and I just want to wrap by going around the horn. We'll start with you, Kyle. And I'd love for you just to have a moment to use this platform to tell other caregivers and those who are living with severe ME just one last little piece of advice or piece of hope.
Being a caregiver requires holding a lot of opposite ideas in your head at the same time. You have to have the faith that your lives are going to get better, and you have to also see just how brutal the day-to-day is, and you have to see your partner in pain, and you have to be happy at the same time. And those I don't want to say, oh, the hope is in recovery, but what I will say is that if you focus your energy on understanding how to be a caregiver and how to live in this world, that your life is going to improve. My life was a tornado, and I was very depressed for about, I don't know, a long time, well over a year. And it took a long time to let my partner's journey with pain be their journey with pain. I can't change that, like Galen was saying. And, as I learned how to do it, my life is so much better now. And Diana is happy that my life is better. And, in my personal journey, it so happens that, Diana has seen small improvements. And that could be the case, that could not be the case. It just is how it happens. So sometimes you see some improvements, sometimes you don't. You take the wins when you can, but you have to make sure that your life is focused on, expanding and growing and being the person that you want to be.
Thank you, Kyle. Amy?
Yeah, I think we see this as such a marathon, and I think day to day it's really hard to not get bogged down in like the pains of this disease. This is such a painful, emotional. I mean, you think like all of the stressors, all of the exertions that make this disease horrible, the physical, the cognitive, the social, emotional, every part of this person's soul is changed. And it also, as caregivers, it changes ours. And I think that part can be so overwhelming, but I also feel like there is so much hope. There is so much moving forward. And I know it feels in the moment not to be that shining light, but I think this is a marathon and we have to just keep going forward. We have to put one foot in front of the next and keep moving. And, with that, we just, there is trust that, that today will be, tomorrow will be better than today, and we just keep moving. But if there are bumps in the road and pitfalls, we have to believe that that's not necessarily what's going to be a major setback, that we just keep moving, putting our head down as caregivers, and bringing our loved one the hope that they don't have the outside resources to really change their immediate environment. So by us just looking a little bit forward, I think is the way that we just keep moving. We just keep going and keep moving, because there is something coming around the corner.
Thank you, Amy. Galen.
I want to emphasize that for people caring for someone with severe ME, there is a tendency to, especially at the very beginning, to panic and to be nervous and stressed, and everything is an emergency and this kind of thing. And I lost my health. I became sick. I got sarcoidosis in my lungs and in my heart, and I lost my job and all of this because I believe that whole thing I was describing about, how panicked I always was, it killed my health. And I can't be the person that my son needs if I'm, 6 feet under. So I would like to emphasize, turn off the panic button. Don't be constantly on edge. Learn how to, if they need you, if they text, they need something, and it's not an emergency, take a sip of water, go to the bathroom, give yourself a moment before you head in there and deal with this, so that you are a person. You're not just like an extension of their needs. You're your own person. And it's like, okay, they need me. I'm going to go and do the best I can do, but I'm not going to run unless it's, we have a panic button. He has a call button. And if he doesn't have his phone, but like if he's pushing that button, he urinated on himself or something bad happened. And I run. But in general, he's saying, can I have a cup of tea? Okay, I can make you a cup of tea, but I need to go to the bathroom, and I don't need to say any of that. It's just he learns that, and it does get better. Eventually, he started to say things like, please and thank you. And the next time you're up, and when you're in the kitchen, could I have this or whatever? And that was a major shift in the way things were from when he was super, super severe. But I'm going to echo what Kyle said about, you got to be a human being. And if you can be a happy human being, even though your person is suffering, you're going to be better for them.
Thank you. I have really enjoyed this, and I greatly appreciate all of your vulnerability and time today. I want to encourage everyone, both on this call and hopefully those who watch our recording, to continue these conversations. Be a support for one another. We're all in this together. As a quick reminder, these recordings and the resource guide will be emailed to those who registered in the following days. If you found this resource valuable to you, please consider supporting our free educational webinars. You can do that by making a gift to Solve and Bateman Horn today. The donation will be shared between the two nonprofit organizations. Thank you for your time and participation. We look forward to seeing you at our next webinar on Wednesday, November 13th, where we will be discussing legal rights and protections for individuals with severe ME/CFS. Until then, take care and please be kind to yourselves.